Emma sat quietly in the safe house, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The recent contact with Grace had given her a flicker of hope, but the fear of what lay ahead was still ever present. She couldn't shake the guilt that gnawed at her, the memory of Mr. Anderson's collapse replaying in her mind over and over. She had made a terrible mistake, and now she had to face the consequences. But as the days passed, something began to nag at Emma. The scene in Mr. Anderson's office, the way he had collapsed so suddenly, the sheer intensity of his reaction, didn't add up. She knew she had poisoned his coffee, but she had only used a small amount, enough to make him sick, not to kill him. It didn't make sense. What if something else had caused his death? One afternoon, Grace called with an update. "Emma, there's something you need to know," Grace said, her voice tinged with urgency. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "Our legal team has been digging into Mr. Anderson's medical history. It turns out he had a severe heart condition, one that he kept hidden from everyone. He was on medication, but the stress of the situation might have triggered a heart attack." Emma froze, the word sinking in. A heart attack. Grace continued, "Yes, it's possible that his heart condition, combined with the stress and the small dose of poison, caused his death." "Emma, this changes everything. You might not be as guilty as you think." The realization hit Emma like a tidal wave. Could it be true? Had Mr. Anderson's death been a tragic accident, a perfect storm of unfortunate circumstances rather than a cold-blooded murder? "Grace, what does this mean for me?" Emma asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. "It means there's a chance to prove that you didn't intend to kill him," Grace replied. "We are going to push for an investigation into Mr. Anderson's medical history. If we can show that his death was due to his heart condition and not just the poison, we might be able to clear your name." Emma felt a rush of emotions, relief, disbelief, and a tentative sense of hope. "Do you really think it could work?" Grace's voice was firm. "Yes, Emma. But we need to be cautious. The legal process will take time, and there are still risks involved. But with this new information, we have a fighting chance." As the days passed, Grace and Sarah worked tirelessly to build Emma's case. They contacted medical experts, gathered testimonies, and dug deeper into Mr. Anderson's past. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that his death was likely the result of his undiagnosed heart condition. Meanwhile, Emma wrestled with her guilt. Even if she hadn't intended to kill Mr. Anderson, she had still poisoned him. The weight of that decision lingered in her mind, and she knew that she would have to face the consequences, whatever they might be. One day, Grace called with unexpected news. "Emma, there's been a breakthrough." Emma held her breath. "What is it?" "We've uncovered something that could change everything. Mr. Anderson wasn't just dealing with a heart condition, he was also involved in some shady business dealings. There's evidence that someone else might have wanted him dead." Emma's mind raced. "What do you mean?" Grace continued, "Mr. Anderson had a lot of enemies, Emma. People who might have seen his death as an opportunity. It's possible that someone else tampered with his coffee that morning, or even that he was poisoned by someone else entirely." The implications of Grace's words were staggering. Could it be that Emma wasn't responsible for Mr. Anderson's death at all? Was she simply a pawn in a much larger, more dangerous game? "We need to be careful," Grace warned. "If this theory is true, we could be dealing with someone who's willing to go to great lengths to cover their tracks. But if we can prove it, we might be able to clear your name completely." Emma's head spun with the possibilities. She had spent so long believing that she was responsible for Mr. Anderson's death, and now the truth seemed more elusive than ever. But one thing was clear, she couldn't give up. Not now. Not when there was a chance to find out what really happened. As the investigation continued, Grace and Sarah uncovered more clues. They found records of Mr. Anderson's meetings with suspicious individuals, transactions that didn't add up, and a network of associates who had plenty of reasons to want him out of the picture. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, and with each new discovery, Emma's case grew stronger. But the closer they got to the truth, the more dangerous things became. One night, Sarah received a threatening message. "Back off, or else." It was clear that someone was watching them, and that their pursuit of the truth was making powerful enemies. Emma knew she had to stay strong, despite the fear that gripped her. The fight to clear her name had become more than just a personal battle, it was now a matter of survival. And as the walls closed in around her, she realized that the only way out was to face the truth head-on, no matter how terrifying it might be. Grace, Sarah, and the legal team worked around the clock, determined to expose the real killer. They knew time was running out, and that the longer they waited, the more likely it was that their enemies would strike. Finally, after weeks of relentless work, they found the smoking gun, a witness who had seen someone tampering with Mr. Anderson's coffee that morning. The witness, a former employee of Mr. Anderson, had been too scared to come forward, but with Grace and Sarah's encouragement, they agreed to testify. The revelation turned the entire case on its head. The real killer was someone close to Mr. Anderson, someone who had the motive and the means to carry out the murder. Emma had been set up, a scapegoat in a plot that went far beyond her actions. As the truth came to light, Emma's legal team moved swiftly. They presented their findings to the authorities, and the case against Emma began to unravel. The media picked up the story, and soon, the public's perception of Emma shifted from that of a cold-blooded killer to a victim of circumstance. But even as the truth emerged, the danger was far from over. The real killer, now cornered, was desperate and unpredictable. Emma knew that her fight wasn't over yet, but with Grace and Sarah by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. And then, just when they thought they had it all figured out, a new twist emerged, one that threatened to change everything once again. The revelation of the witness's testimony sent shockwaves through the investigation. Emma's legal team was ready to present their case in court, but as they prepared for the trial, another piece of the puzzle fell into their lap, an anonymous tip. The tipster claimed to have information that would completely exonerate Emma, but there was a catch: the information came with a demand for money. It was a risky proposition, but one that Grace and Sarah couldn't ignore. They decided to follow the lead, hoping it would finally bring the truth to light. Sarah arranged a clandestine meeting with the tipster in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. Emma and Grace waited anxiously in the safe house, their nerves on edge. Hours passed, and when Sarah finally returned, her face was a mixture of triumph and concern. "We have it," Sarah said, holding up a small, encrypted USB drive. "But there's more to this than we thought." Grace frowned. "What do you mean?" Sarah took a deep breath. "The tipster provided us with surveillance footage from the day Mr. Anderson died. It shows someone entering his office just minutes before Emma arrived. The person in the video is clearly seen tampering with something on Mr. Anderson's desk, likely the coffee. But that's not all. The footage also shows Mr. Anderson confronting this person, and a heated argument ensues." Emma's heart pounded. "Who was it? Who's in the video?" Sarah hesitated, then said, "It's someone we didn't suspect, Mr. Anderson's business partner, Marcus Delaney." Grace's eyes widened. "Marcus? But why would he do it?" "That's what we need to figure out," Sarah replied. "The footage is damning, but it doesn't show the whole story. We need to find out what their argument was about and why Marcus would want Mr. Anderson dead." Emma's mind raced. She had met Marcus only a few times, but he had always seemed like a polished, successful businessman, hardly the type to commit murder. But appearances could be deceiving, and in the world Mr. Anderson inhabited, power and money could drive people to do terrible things. As they delve deeper into Marcus Delaney's background, they uncover the web of deceit and corruption. Marcus had been involved in several shady deals that Mr. Anderson had been unaware of or had chosen to ignore. But when Mr. Anderson discovered the extent of Marcus's betrayals, he had threatened to expose him, effectively ending Marcus's career and possibly leading to criminal charges. It became clear that Marcus had every reason to silence Mr. Anderson before he could ruin him. The poisoned coffee was his way of eliminating the threat, and Emma had unknowingly become the perfect scapegoat. But just as they were preparing to take this new evidence to the authorities, Marcus made a bold move. He went public with a counter-narrative, painting himself as a grieving partner who had uncovered Emma's plot to kill Mr. Anderson out of revenge for some imagined slight. The media lapped up his story, and suddenly, the tide of public opinion turned against Emma once more. The situation grew more dangerous as Marcus's influence began to sway key figures in the investigation. It became clear that he had powerful allies, people who were willing to go to great lengths to protect him. Grace, Sarah, and Emma found themselves up against a well-oiled machine of corruption and deceit, with their every move being watched. But they weren't ready to give up. Sarah managed to secure a meeting with a journalist known for exposing corruption, hoping to get the real story out before Marcus could tighten his grip on the narrative. The journalist, a tough and determined woman named Rebecca Stone, agreed to help, but warned them that they would need more than just the footage to bring Marcus down. "We need to find something that directly ties Marcus to the murder," Rebecca said. "Something undeniable that the authorities can't ignore, no matter how deep the corruption runs." Sarah nodded. "We are working on it. There's one more angle we haven't explored yet, Mr. Anderson's financial records. If we can prove that Marcus stood to gain financially from Mr. Anderson's death, it might be the final nail in the coffin." With Rebecca's help, they launched an in-depth investigation into Marcus's finances. What they found was shocking: hidden bank accounts, offshore transactions, and a suspicious life insurance policy taken out on Mr. Anderson just months before his death, with Marcus named as the sole beneficiary. But as they pieced together the evidence, Marcus struck back. "Emma received a chilling message: drop the investigation, or you'll regret it." The threat was a stark reminder of the danger they were in. But instead of scaring them off, it only strengthened their resolve. They were closer than ever to exposing the truth. And now, they had to be ready for anything. The final showdown was inevitable. As they prepared to go public with their findings, they knew that Marcus wouldn't go down without a fight. The next few days would be crucial, and every decision they made could mean the difference between justice and disaster. Grace, Sarah, and Emma huddled together, determined to see this through to the end. They knew that the battle ahead would be fierce, but with the truth on their side, they were ready to take on Marcus Delaney and the powerful forces behind him. Emma's redemption was within reach, but it would come at a high cost. And as the storm clouds gathered, she braced herself for the fight of her life. Grace and Sarah decided to confront Marcus Delaney, but they knew they had to be careful. He was a powerful man with dangerous connections. They needed concrete evidence to expose his crimes and protect Emma. After some discussion, they devised a plan to lure Marcus into a trap. Using Grace's connections, they contacted a journalist known for exposing corruption. The journalist, a sharp and fearless woman named Linda, agreed to help. She had a reputation for taking down powerful figures, and she was eager to expose Marcus Delaney's dark dealings. Grace arranged a meeting with Marcus under the guise of discussing Emma's situation. Meanwhile, Sarah and Linda worked behind the scenes to gather more evidence and set up surveillance. The plan was risky, but they had no other option if they wanted to clear Emma's name and bring Marcus to justice. On the day of the meeting, Grace arrived at a luxurious hotel where Marcus had arranged to meet. She walked into the grand lobby, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. Marcus was already there, sitting in a private lounge area, sipping on a glass of whiskey. He looked up as Grace approached, a sly smile playing on his lips. "Grace, it's been a long time," Marcus said smoothly, motioning for her to sit. Grace forced a smile and took a seat across from him. "Yes, it has. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "So, what brings you here? I heard you've been busy trying to help Emma." Grace nodded, keeping her expression calm. "I want to clear things up. I know Emma didn't kill Mr. Anderson, but I need your help." Marcus chuckled, a sinister gleam in his eyes. "And why would I help her? What's in it for me?" Grace leaned forward, her voice low. "I know you're involved in things that could ruin you if they ever came to light. Helping Emma might be the only way to protect yourself." Marcus's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating look. "Are you threatening me, Grace?" Grace shook her head. "No, just offering a deal. You help us clear Emma's name, and we keep quiet about what we know." For a moment, there was silence as Marcus weighed his options. Then, he leaned forward, his voice icy. "You're playing a dangerous game, Grace. But I like your style. What do you want me to do?" Before Grace could respond, the hotel door burst open, and Sarah entered, followed by Linda and several police officers. "It's over, Marcus," Sarah said firmly. "We have all the evidence we need." Marcus's eyes widened in shock, but he quickly regained his composure. "You think you can take me down? You're all fools." Linda stepped forward, holding up a file. "We have proof of your involvement in Mr. Anderson's death, and it's all going public. There's no escaping this." The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized the gravity of the situation. He glanced at Grace, his expression a mixture of anger and fear. "You set me up," he hissed. Grace stood up, her voice steady. "You killed Mr. Anderson to frame Emma, but it's over now. You're going to pay for what you did." Marcus was arrested on the spot, and as the police led him away, Grace and Sarah exchanged relieved glances. The plan had worked, and Emma was finally free from the nightmare that had plagued her. Later that day, Emma was released from custody. She met with Grace and Sarah, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "I can't believe it's finally over," she whispered. Grace hugged her tightly. "It's over, Emma. You're free now." Sarah smiled. "And we'll make sure Marcus pays for everything he's done." With Marcus Delaney behind bars and Emma's name cleared, the nightmare was finally over. But Emma knew that she had a long road ahead to rebuild her life. With Grace and Sarah by her side, she was ready to face whatever the future held, determined to make the most of her second chance. In this captivating tale, we learn that truth and justice will always prevail, no matter how powerful or influential someone may be. Emma's story reminds us that standing up for what is right, even in the face of great danger, is a noble and courageous act. It also teaches us the importance of friendship and loyalty, as true friends like Grace will go to great lengths to support and protect us in our darkest times. In the end, deception and corruption are exposed, proving that evil cannot escape the light of justice. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from and what valuable lesson you learned from Emma's journey. We'd love to hear from you.